Alright, so I've been wanting to do an audio format thing for a while, but I might have picked the bad timing because I'm a little sick, so sorry if this sounds gross, but I was thinking I had a few people requesting that I tell one of the stories that I posted, but I didn't really want to go over old stuff again, so I was walking home the other night and I was just sort of thinking, and I remembered way back when I used to work with some community charity groups, and every week there was always this old guy, and I don't really want to say his name in case his family hears about it, but I'm gonna call him Frank. And he was a cool dude. I was always really awkward because like everyone there was like 60 years older than me, but Frank was cool. He gave good hugs, and he had a lot of health problems, so he'd usually just sit on his walker, and I don't know if he had a hard time talking, but he never really spoke much. But he'd sit there, and he had a lot of like I said, a lot of health problems. So one of his health problems, I guess, was he had a hard time breathing, and so he had to put a lot of effort into it. And so he'd have to like intentionally breathe, and he had this big air tank and some kind of like hose that would connect to his face, and you'd just hear it throughout every meeting. It would go and you just sort of tune that out, and if he forgot to breathe, or I guess if he stopped breathing, it had a sensor in it that would go beep, and he'd have to remember to start breathing again. But the problem is he was also had a lot of hearing loss, so he was mostly deaf. So every single day, every week, every meeting, you'd hear whoosh, 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 beep, and he wouldn't hear it, and so someone would have to be like, breathe, Frank, Frank, breathe, and someone would tap him on the shoulder, and you'd hear I'm not dead yet. And that was just, and he'd laugh, and he'd always get a chuckle, and he'd start breathing again, and it would go and oh god, I have no idea how old he was. He must have been like 90. He was always very small and just sitting in his walker, and he'd hold the donation can on his lap. And he'd give him a hug at the end of the meeting, and then I guess a couple years later I got a call, and it was like, yeah, no, Frank died. And it was actually really sweet. I was invited to the funeral, and I went and got to see him laid out in his casket, and they did a beautiful job. He had a big grin on his face, and he's just lying there with his hands on his chest, and I walked past to say goodbye, and all I can think is, I'm not dead yet. So yeah, that was Frank.